All right, everybody, happy Community Manager Appreciation Day 2016. Our community of community managers has been getting together and celebrating our industry and recognizing each other now for 7 years, ever since Jeremiah Owing sent out a tweet and said, hey, on the fourth Monday of every January, wouldn't it be cool if we celebrated community managers with Community Management Appreciation Day? And it's just gone on and grown each year. So for the last 4 years, we here have done these panels and live streaming, 24 of them for the last 3 years, or 24 each day. So that's math. And for the last 3 years, we've done awards where sponsors have helped supply swag and actual physical awards that get shipped all around the world. And this year we had over 300 nominations, which is pretty amazing. And just really cool to see that program grow and to see us recognizing each other in that way. So my name is Brew. I'm the Director of Awesome with BTC Revolutions, as well as co-producer of my Community Manager Hangout with Sherry, and just really happy to be here today.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry Rohde. I'm the Community Manager at Magento and co-producing JR Hangout at MyCMGR.
Hey guys, happy CMAD. I'm Rachel Miller, Social Strategist at Pure Matter.
Hey guys, it's Brock. I'm the founder of Amplify Your Biz, and I'm also the community manager for Meshfire here in Seattle.
Hey guys, my name is Dom, community manager and project manager at BTC Revolutions, as well as co-host with Sherry and Brew on Fridays for Community Manager Hangout. Wanted to take some time. Brew was talking about those wonderful, wonderful sponsors that we have, and you've seen their baller logos on our T-shirts and on the wall behind them all day. But yeah, just wanted to give a quick shout out to them and all the help that they had for the awards. So thank you very much to Salesforce Community Cloud, to Higher Logic, to Online Community Results, to Sprout Social and Vanilla Forums, to Zoomph, communitymanagement.org, socialmedia.org, Amplify Yourself, Igloo Intranet, and Meshfire. Thank you guys very, very much for everything. Make sure you do go to cmad.co/awards. We have all of the winners and all of the nominees and what people were saying about them up on there. So thanks a lot, guys. Brew, what do we have in this, I believe, the 19th hour?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, this is the 19th hour of 24. The subject is how to start a branded online community from scratch. So really excited about this. And Carrie, we'll just leave everything up to you.
Hey everybody, I'm Carrie Jones, and I am the Director of Content for CMX. And I have previously built community at Chegg and Scribd and with consulting clients around the world. So I'm really excited about this topic. It's near and dear to my heart. So we'll introduce the full panel here, starting with Barack, who's actually on the Community Manager Hangout team, too.
Yeah, it's weird to actually stay on and talk today. I am Barack DC, everywhere on the internet, basically, and I have been doing community management, and basically I call myself an amplifier, so it includes everything from community to content to strategy for whatever my clients have needed, and I've been doing that for about getting close to 7 years now, so it's been fun. I've been building communities from scratch and also kind of taking over communities that have already existed and participating in them, so this should be a fun conversation, so I'm looking forward to it.
We'll go with Danya next.
Hi guys, I'm Danya. I currently work at Spark Capital, which is a venture capital firm that invests in tech startups. So I work with about 100 startups from super early stage to late stage, helping build community across those companies, and then also helping support and professionally develop the startup employees in those companies. And before I joined Spark, I was actually at one of our portfolio companies, a company called Skillshare, where I was the second employee and the first non-product, non-engineer. So my role was specifically rooted in community management, helping build our community of teachers and students, both in person and online. But also doing lots of other stuff on the side, as any startup employee would, including PR, marketing, branding, recruiting, leadership development. etc. And I have a pop-up restaurant on the side, so I'm building my own community around Jewish culture. It's called Pop-Up Shabbat.
Awesome. You want to go next, Spinks, the people's champion right here?
I really hope that doesn't stick. Yeah, I'm David Spinks. I'm the founder and CEO of CMX. I've learned everything I know about community from Danya. Now, I've been building community for about 10 years now professionally. Have worked with lots of different startups and different companies building community. Danya and I used to actually meet up for breakfast every single week before there was any sort of real community for us to turn to, and we would just exchange advice about what we're dealing with and the challenges we're facing. So we kind of relied on each other as a support group as we were learning how to do this stuff. And that all led me to start CMX about 2 years ago, and CMX is the hub for the community industry. We're working to bring together, to advance the industry by bringing together platforms, professionals, and all the brands investing in community to try to advance the entire space and bring everyone together.
Awesome. And Raj?
Hey guys, my name is Raj. I run a community at Yext, and including that, I also run our independent daily news site called geomarketing.com. And I will say that I've done a lot of roles, done a lot of conferences, but the last 6 or so months I've been involved with the CMX so far, and I've never seen so much love in my life. And also makes me wonder, like, what kind of industries have I been in that people don't love each other that much? But thank you for having me. It's really nice to be part of this.
Welcome. We love you. And then rounding out our all-star panel, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa DiMauro, and I'm the CEO of a company called Leader Networks, and we build online community strategy and do operations. Since we're on the theme of saying how long we've been building online communities, I'm on my 28th year. I built over 220 communities. I started out as a community manager running them, and now we do the consulting and build the strategies with clients. And I've been researching communities since ARPANET, so it's an honor to be here.
No big deal. Awesome. Yeah, so we have a ton of amazing perspectives here. We'll just get started with the first question. We have tons to cover. I got really ambitious with the number and breadth of questions that I wanted to ask. But yeah, we'll just dive right in. So what are some of the signs that you have noticed that a business is ready to invest in a community strategy, and whose responsibility is it to sell them on that strategy? And you guys can just raise your hands and just unmute yourselves and go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, I'll go first. I'll bite the bullet. I think that the signs that a business ready investment community strategy is when their business plan is in place, and they should really start thinking about community from the beginning. And I think that it should be something that should be within their business plan as they're thinking about their marketing plan and how they're going to be promoting their business and how they're going to connect with their customers. Community should be something that belongs within the beginning of a business, and it should be in the foundation of it. And that's really difficult, and that's really difficult for bigger companies. It's really difficult for smaller businesses because that's not really something that they think of, because they think of community. It's not a word that comes up, and I always think of when I'm selling my clients or when I'm talking to my clients, it's always about the people that you want to be talking about you, the people you want to be a part of your business. They are your community, and as far as whose responsibility is to sell them on it, I'm not really sure, because it really depends. Because if they haven't started it, if it wasn't something they began thinking about in the first place, and it's whoever comes in that does marketing, or whoever is in charge of the business plan, I think. So it really varies.
Yeah.
I'll go to oh, sorry, Raj, you want to go for it?
No, please go ahead.
So on the flip side, I built a bunch of communities that I would call internal to the company, so not necessarily explicitly for brand building perspectives or for people who are excited about the brand, but more so for people who are within the product. So whether that's a peer-to-peer marketplace or a portfolio of startups like Sparks, where I'm actually not even a part of directly building the community from scratch, meaning I get handed a signed term sheet and it's like, great, here's your newest community member. They just joined the portfolio. I think, a sign in that kind of community, at least in my experience, is when the community is already starting to build itself. That can be a really good sign for the company or for the person in charge of the business plan or the firm or the product. And if they haven't noticed that that's happening and that's not why they're coming to you, then they're definitely too late. But, for Spark in particular, like our product managers and our CEOs and all of our peers were starting to meet each other, and it was super clear that the need was already there. And I came in to help organize it all and to facilitate growth. But at Skillshare, I came from day one knowing that we had a peer-to-peer marketplace and that we wanted to build a support system for each side of the marketplace.
Yeah, and I'll add my 2 cents. In my experience, I think it starts with a product team. I call a bad product manager a community of one because they haven't done a good job evangelizing the product, the business case, as Brock put it. But I think it really needs to be part of the inception or infancy of any type of concept. And then there's an internal and external community. For Yext, we have a huge external community. Our reseller channel, which is about 4,000 agencies, are all a community for us. And in order to nurture them and help them grow, we have to connect them with each other, with the industry and with Yext.
And I have a couple things to add. I think everyone brought out a lot of really important aspects from the customer and the business needs. And as I spend a lot of time thinking about business drivers, I find that when an organization is ready, they really understood that it's a line of business. It's not a woohoo, we made a Facebook page, but there's a really deep commitment to treating it like a line of business. And the other thing that we tend to look for that I think is pretty important is that their customer care channels and their customer relation programs are in fact resilient and strong. Because if the relationships with their customers aren't meaningful in the in-person world, then opening up or laying it atop a community can only make it worse and shine a spotlight on things that need to be fixed. So from the business perspective, they need to have a problem they need to address and understand it's significant lifting and have the proper approach to help manage it when the floodgates open online.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. I mean, and do you think that that's something that a community manager can come in and fix that all on their own as a lone crusader, or is that just a hopeless task?
Yeah, no, it takes a village.
Yeah, that's been my impression as well. Yeah, so we've talked about the business side. How do you know that your customers are ready for a community? Just because a business wants to, invest in a community strategy does not mean that their customers are even wanting to gather together in one place. So what are some signs that customers actually want something like this? How can you validate that side of things?
I guess I'll kick this one off. Yeah, I think, and this ties to the last question too, like the only way community works is if you actually give a shit. If you actually care about the members and building the community. If you're looking at it solely as like a value transaction, it's probably not going to work very well because people don't like to be a part of a community that isn't driven by like a true passion and true empathy and caring about it. And so assuming you actually care about it, it should be a topic that you're already somewhat familiar with. You should already have a feel and a pulse of what the community members' needs are, and if you're actually going to start investing in it as a business, you'll look to validate what you already believe you understand about community members. And so, the first thing I ask companies when they come and ask about building a community from scratch, I always ask them, how many community members have you spoken to so far? And the answer is almost always none. And I say, okay, go talk to 3 of them and then call me back, right? Like, until you start talking to members and validating what you believe is the value that the community will provide, you have no idea. So start to talk to them and look for identifiers like, are they, the way they speak about it, do you get a sense that they feel?
Did we lose David?
Yeah, I think we lost David.
No! I felt like he was leading up to a mic drop moment over there.
Uh-oh.
Can I build off his
Oh,
point?
there he is.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
Did you lose me?
Just for a
Sorry.
second.
Well, yeah. So I was saying basically when you're interviewing members, look for identifiers like how isolated they are, right? If the way they're talking about the subject gives you signs that they feel isolated, like they want to connect with other members of that interest group or that subject, but they just can't or they don't know how to, that means you have a really golden opportunity to build a community there.
I think it also depends on you have to define what community means to you and what you consider to be a community member, because it varies by industry, it varies by size of business, and it's, is it when you're creating a community, are your customers talking about you? Are the people you want to be part of your community, are they already talking about you and you're not talking back to them? And that's one indication that your customers are ready for a community. And then it's identifying, is it the very first customer that maybe sometimes makes a purchase from you? Is it somebody internal? Is it influencers? I think there are a lot of factors that go into whether or not your customers are ready for a community, and that begins with you defining what you want that community to be. Is it something, because not everything's going to work the same for you, and it might even be within your industry, like your competitor, what they're doing and what they're defining as community might not make sense for you and your customers. So I think that when it comes to building branded communities, the biggest mistake I've seen is people just kind of going into it, thinking that they can basically copy whatever is being already done without really thinking about what it means for them to define the community and the community members and how their customers will stand within it.
I think, just going even a step deeper, like my favorite communities are the ones where, first of all, to David's point, the customer or the member's need or pain point is actually what's driving the creation of the community and not just the business's goal. Although, to Vanessa's point, it is really important to get a company to articulate, like, what's the point of doing this? How does this help your business grow? Or, like, how does this tie back into your company's values, goals, et cetera? Otherwise, it's really hard to make decisions about what you're going to spend, what direction the community is going to go in, what tools you're going to use, et cetera. But I think my favorite ones are the ones that go beyond just kind of brand fans and really digs into the need or the pain point of the customer. So like if I'm building a community, for example, around entrepreneurs for Spark Capital across all different kinds of verticals, all different kinds of products, all different kinds of stages of companies, it is really hard to find something that's super communal amongst those companies that's not just serving Spark's goal of like getting those companies to be super excited about us and refer us to other startups, but something that like 99 to 100% of all of the employees at our startups experience is lack of professional development. And once we learn that from doing tons of interviews and surveys with the people at our companies before even putting anything on paper or on the internet, it made it really clear that they were ready for us to come in if we were going to help them grow professionally and build community around that. So we do lots of workshops, for example.
Yeah, I think I'll add a little bit is that to David's point, yeah, we did a lot of qualitative surveys, and based off of that, we did some quantitative surveys just to really zero in on what the needs were. And our needs were that, so Yext itself had needs that we can't grow unless our resellers do. So we really had to zero in on what their needs are. Like, why aren't they selling? And it's not just simply sending emails and saying, sell this, say this, do that. Some of them have no idea what's going on in the industry. They have no idea what their fellow resellers are doing. They have no idea what's going on in the region or the topic. So it was really learning from them, what they meant by tips and tricks when they said, I wanted to learn about tips and tricks. When they said, I wanted to learn more about the industry or the topics. How deep do you want to go? Because everybody wants to learn, but they want everything in a tweet. So it was really zeroing in with surveying and calls about exact needs, and it was basically, at the end of the day, finding out they needed a lot more marketing help. And then how could we zero in on marketing help? And that was just kind of digging deeper into the funnel.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the most important thing that's coming out of all of this is that you absolutely have to talk to people, and the more you can talk to them, the better, and really understanding like deeply what their pain points are. I think what we hear from a lot of companies through CMX and some research that we're doing with Leader Networks is that if customers are coming to you asking the same questions over and over again, if they feel like someone in your company is an expert and can help them with the problems they have, those are some indicators that when people are actually reaching out proactively that you have something there that you can probably leverage into something very valuable to your customers. Anyone else want to add to that question? All right. So the next question is, what are some, I use quote-unquote lean ways of getting an online community off the ground? So sometimes you don't want to go full into, you know, let's call up, let's get a software platform, you know, let's do all these things, make these big investments. You want to try small ways of launching a community before you actually invest the big dollars and time and energy and resources into launching a community. So what are some ways that you can do that that are, you know, affordable and not so resource intensive, that you can just validate that there's a need there?
That's a question that, you know, we think about a lot. And, you know, as we were talking about the business needs and the customer needs. So when you think about it, you've got on one hand, you know, the business needs, and then the other hand, you can identify some of the customer needs. And if you can find the place where they overlap and forget about the ones that don't matter, then you can really hone in on, you know, something that meets every master, both the company and the members. And contrary to popular wisdom, I actually shy away from the idea of starting with, say, a LinkedIn group or something of that nature, because members really hate transitioning. They get accustomed to their platform, they get embedded, they get comfortable. So I find that a more prudent way and to keep costs down, but to really reality test is to use the power to convene and bring people together, either in voice or in person, and start to build the community with a big C that way. And that only helps when you launch with the platform once you validated the need, because the relationships are there, the context is there, and they've already started the conversation. It's just a matter of bringing them online next. But starting with that human bit around that business need that serves the members is a really powerful way to go.
Yeah, I would say on our side, we actually just started with a very simple WordPress site. And it was literally just some help on onboarding to get folks onto our platform, make sure they're the right information to get started. And we just kind of had MVP measures for like the first 30 days. And then interviewing everybody after the onboarding, like what worked, what didn't work. And then basically iterating on top of it. And that WordPress site kind of has become like now the source of the truth. Whenever somebody needs anything, they go there. And sometimes we'll do vaporware testing. We'll just throw a button on there that doesn't even work just to see how many people are clicking on it. And within like a day, if a lot of people are clicking on it, we're like, okay, we're going to make this, we're actually going to build this out and make it a real thing.
I think that, and this is going to sound super simple, but it's, for me, when it comes to starting with your community and getting it off the ground, go to where your customers and community is and find out where they are and do a little bit more listening first. And I mean, that's kind of a given, but I feel like that's a step that we forget about sometimes, of like, that's how we get the community off the ground, by finding where it is and listening and participating in conversations without, even before you create the brand, that like you can have your website, have the FAQs, and like have a simple WordPress website like you were saying, but I think the easiest way is to kind of let your customers know and your community know that you're there and you're talking to them, and that can either be, it really depends, and I keep coming back to this, but I've worked with brands and companies across different industries and different platforms and different needs, so it really matters what your where you belong and where your customers belong. Because for some, it'll make sense to have a Facebook page. For some, it'll make sense to just throw a WordPress site and that's it. For others, you'll need to have a dedicated forum because you might have sensitive information, you might be super technical. So I think that finding where your customers are and where your community is and listening and participating in conversation and kind of setting yourself up as a thought leader and as somebody that they can come to, that's really important too as well.
Yeah, I just want to add, it's interesting that like a lot of companies will look at lean as in like, well, if we can't afford it, we need to take a lean approach or something like that. When in reality, specifically for a community, it actually makes a lot more sense usually to start with a lean approach, because what that actually means is it's very focused and it's very hands-on, right? You're doing things that, you know, you're not building a massive platform right now. You're, like Vanessa said, you're hosting dinners or you're bringing people together for these intimate experiences in person. So, you know, the idea of like doing things that won't scale, it's the idea that you can be extremely hands-on up front, create this very special emotional experience, and that's the way every community should be built. Even if eventually it'll be 10 million people on a massive platform, the way you start communities is by creating this first core group and giving them a very hands-on, special experience that makes them feel this strong sense of belonging and purpose for being members there. And then you build, scale on top of that. Right? So lean is actually the way I would recommend anybody starts a community, which is just to say, start focused, start on a small group, do things that don't scale to give them a really amazing special experience, and that your goal with the lean, the whole point of the lean model is that you learn. Right? It's not necessarily that you're optimizing for a massive community. You're optimizing to learn as much as possible. So always think about what is it you're trying to learn by creating this experience. How will you know if you were right or wrong after that experience? And then what will you do based on that decision?
You know, you, David, and Vanessa, you guys reminded me of something that's happened to me with both Spark and Skillshare, where you know, you may start with one really tight-knit or smaller, intimate group of people who either were already really responsive when you started to reach out about building community, or who you've already seen be active, or frankly, you may have just picked a group of people that like you wanted to be your initial group of advocates. And you know, when I was at Skillshare, we were an online learning platform, so we had all these different verticals like design and business and you know whatever, and we tried to pick certain verticals to like be our kind of early, we're going to promote you and you're going to help us build our brand the way we want to build our brand, mini kind of sub communities that would then supposedly inspire the rest of the community to glom on. But it didn't always work that way. And similarly, I had no idea that one of the most active groups within the Spark Capital portfolio would not even be the community managers at our company, but the CFOs, because they have no community anywhere else. So, you know, I kind of had to follow my nose on that one because I was wrong about who I thought were going to be like the early, scrappy, super committed community members who would grow the community. It was actually people who needed the community who I just didn't guess would be active.
Yeah, you said something there. You're going to help us build the brand that we want to build. Like, that's not how community building works. I think a lot of businesses have an insane amount of trouble wrapping their heads around the fact that they're going to have to stop feeling like they have control over every single aspect when you're ready to build a community. It's about mutual trust between you and your community members, and actually making an investment in them. So I really noticed pretty much like all of you kind of created like a scale from the beginning all the way to, you know, early starting out, where you might start out with an evangelist, like you're talking about like developer evangelism, where people are actually going out, you're going to other people's events, you're meeting people, then you're building relationships from there in the community that you want to reach out to and make part of your own. That builds trust. Then you start with like a small site like a WordPress or like a Facebook group. You maybe put on an event of your own, and then you keep learning and just keep iterating until you have something that's ready to go for the big time. That's pretty much what I got from all of you. So we have a whole model right there for lean community building. Cool. So I guess going along with that question, do you need a platform right away? when you're building community. I think we've already kind of answered this, but if anybody wants to add to that, feel free.
I guess I'll just say that, like, when we talk about platform, it's easy to quickly think about like one singular platform where like all the interaction will happen, but in reality that's rarely the case. There might be like an online hub that kind of acts as the gathering point for everything, but in reality you're communicating through other channels. Maybe it's through email, through messaging. You're bringing people together offline as well as online, right? So when I think of platform, I think about the collection of different places that your community members will be interacting with each other. That might be events and dinners or conferences. That might be an online forum or message board. That can include email and other communication channels. So yeah, I mean, you need a platform in that you need to have a place where people are coming together. But that could be anything, and your platform is a collection of those experiences, not necessarily one specific piece of technology that you're stuck to.
Well, whatever you do, don't buy the platform first and then figure out the rest after.
That is frightening. Actually, it gives me like chills down my spine.
It happens a lot.
I know. Yeah, that is the underlying point there. So say now you've started your community space, you have validated a need, you've built these relationships. How do you get early members into your community? What are some pre- and post-launch best practices for member acquisition?
Kidnapping.
No, David.
On the legal note, two things come to mind. One is actually built off of a different point of yours, David, being super duper manual, right? So like there are still going to be people coming to you directly for things that you may want them now to go to the community for. And I just love Google canned responses for that. So someone reaches out to you for one of like 9 things that you know that the community could help them with. It's just like, hey, thanks so much for reaching out. The community would be a great resource for you. Here's the link to whichever part of the platform, you should go to. And I had a second point, but I forgot it.
Yeah, I can go next. I think for us, it was having our resellers get a badge of honor, right? So we actually set up a certification model for Yext and then made them Yext certified partners. And it's funny how many people still tweet about that. They'll get their swag back and they actually take pictures of it and their certificate and they share it on Twitter, on unbeknownst to us, on Instagram as well, which we're now tracking them on. And retweeting and resharing and regramming apparently. So I'm not big on Instagram yet. But I think for us it was basically giving them that badge of honor so that they have incentive to not only be part of the community but get certified as part of the community. And they actually put that on their website. They share it on Twitter. They tell their customers. And it's great to see that type of enthusiasm come out of that type of program, but it also educates them a lot. And it's great, and they now have incentive to also come back and learn more.
So kind of building off of that, what's worked in the past with the communities I've worked with and what I've seen is it's twofold. One, building almost like a panel of advisors that are the experts, like you were saying, that like if they can get certified, they get certified. If they are thought leaders or experts. So when we built a small business community, or like community for small businesses that was product agnostic on the Google platform, it wasn't about talking about AdWords. It wasn't about talking about the products. It was about, here are a panel of advisors who do know about the products, but bring your questions, and like this is the place for you to ask your questions. We're not selling you anything. So having the knowledge base already there and giving the advisors exposure of, you're the experts, we're going to be giving you opportunities to write op-eds, we're going to be talking about you on our social channels, whatever it is, giving them that clout. And on the flip side, if you are a software-based company, or if you're building a software, if you're building maybe a platform, bringing in beta users, so reaching out to potential influencers or potential customers that might really be get a lot of benefit out of your product, kind of bring them as alpha users in a private group and be like, we are actually still working on developing our product, but we want your feedback. Like, play around with it, break it, tell us what's wrong, and it's like it builds that trust, and then they, down the line, when you become a little bit more open, a little bit more public, and a little bit more established, they become the advisors because they've been there since the beginning, and they're the one, it's their feedback that helps you build the product. So I think the knowledge base and the alpha beta users, however you want to approach it, is definitely a good way to find those early adopters.
I actually love that, because those people can also be your advisory board ongoing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It works really well if you do it right.
Yeah, and the theme that seems to be bubbling through, and it's certainly true and good points, is that each community is going to have different triggers for their membership base, and the need is to figure out what is going to compel them to come. I mean, when I just think of some of the really cool and neat communities that I've been involved in over the year, like we built one for federal, state, and international law enforcement. And we couldn't get them to talk for anything when it first started. We were trying to get collaboration between the different agencies, like good luck with that. But finally, you know, with that group, for example, we started putting up gang tattoo pictures of gang tattoos, and started a database, because that's what everyone in the world needed, and that's what got the members to come. With medical communities, access to specialized research and clinical trial data and things like that, that's what they needed to convene and to deepen their practice. And with tech support communities, sometimes just putting up a much needed FAQ or new product information or a sandbox, that's the voodoo for the coders and the developers. So, the beta groups and the whole idea of engaging and figuring out what's going to get them there is going to vary so wildly depending on who your group is. And knitters come for free yarn. I'll show up anywhere for free yarn. So.
Yeah, that's totally true. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I have seen just from interviewing now like hundreds of people is that early testing, and especially closed testing like beta groups, you see that across the board. It makes people feel like they're part of something exclusive and special, and their opinion actually matters, and just really, really important. So I think regardless of what you're building, that's something I've seen, just a common thread through everything. Does anybody else want to add any other
I remembered my second point.
Nice.
Took me a little while. So batching. Whether that's doing some kind of onboarding or event, it could be online, it could be in person, that attracts a particular subset of the community that you've already started to establish, that creates, again, like a more targeted kind of subset of the community, I think can be really helpful. Again, it's just that it's more targeted. Like, there may be an entire brand that people are rallying around, and even still, that there are subgroups or sub-interests within that group, and so bringing those people together to just strengthen the nodes, I found to be really helpful. And then additionally, empowering people from day one without even giving them the pressure of like an advocate or evangelist title, and allowing them to bring other people into the community has also been, frankly, just a really lazy and often effective way to build a community in the early days. So whether that's, and I don't usually say like as a +1 for an event, for example, or like super open-ended, like invite anyone you want, but phrasing things like, who else do you know who would specifically benefit from the topic that this event is centered around? Like, please recommend 2 or 3 people. So something that's like a little bit exclusive and still targeted, and that also surfaces human beings that you had no idea existed, but who could be really great contributing members, all the while allowing that person who's helping you build the community feel that much more invested and likely to show up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to be sure that you are delivering unbelievable value for people to want to invite friends or colleagues along. But that's a great way to validate that what you're building is actually valuable to people, because if they don't want to invite people and you're not going to be able to grow organically, especially in that first year, it's a really big red flag that, you know, if they don't feel comfortable recommending you. Yeah, so that's a really good point. So this is a really big question, this next one. Lots of caveats here, but what are some ways to measure the ROI of community, like right at launch, and does this change over time?
Okay, I'll keep going. I think right at launch, I'm going to zero in on that because it definitely changes over time, especially as you scale. I'd love actually to hear what other people think. I'll tell you what I've done in the recent past. In the super early days, I kind of tie it to two things. One, if you've done the research in the beginning to identify like what are the core needs or the pain points or the reasons and motivations for people to join this community, those become your goalposts. So you may not be testing like super quantitative metrics around engagement. Like maybe you just have a really small sample size. It's not even that worth it to do yet. But you can ask people, are we addressing XYZ need? Are you getting the ABC resources that you said you needed, you know, that brought you to this place initially? So like tracking back to what you learned originally is something that I do in the very beginning. And then also just like overall satisfaction. So my mother's a statistician and she hates the Net Promoter Score. She thinks it's like a load of bullshit. But I found it really useful in the early days to just have like a super simple baseline number that you can watch change over time. So I do use it, to my mother's chagrin, in most of my early surveys just to test the overarching satisfaction. And to go back to your point, Carrie, about like would people recommend, that just feels like a pretty strong test of how much they value what the community is giving them.
How do you measure that? Is there like an app?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so you could literally Google NPS, Net Promoter Score. You could do it in Google Surveys. Like you can put it in any survey tool, and it's just asking on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely would that person be to recommend blank to a friend or colleague? And there's like a funky little way to calculate it.
Yeah, I think that my favorite thing to do is asking questions. I know it's super simple, but like it kind of goes with your point of like you joined this, why did you join us? Like what do you think so far? And when it comes to the success, again, like Carrie pointed out, it's varies. So many variables when it comes to whatever your goals were. I think you need to keep your goals simple. When it comes to the initial launch, like don't have, like in the first year, we're going to have all these business goals that we're hitting. Pick 1 or 2 business goals, pick 1 or 2 goals for your community for the initial 3 months or 6 months, whatever makes sense, and really hone in on those. And even like it might get a little repetitive, but keep asking those questions, keep asking for feedback. And that shouldn't change as you grow. That should be something you can scale. That should be something like keeping your finger on the pulse of your community. Even if you grow beyond the initial smaller group, you should always be able to ask them questions for feedback. And I think that, I mean, and it really, honestly, like kind of going to the question, like the flip side of it is whether or not those new members or the initial members are asking you questions. So do they want to know more about the community? Do they want to know more about your product and your services or whatever it is that you're building the community around? I think that's a good indicator as well. Like, are they actually invested that they want to learn more?
I think for us, I basically sliced it down to onboarding and seeing how successful that was, and then asking 3 questions at the end of onboarding, which was, what worked, what didn't work, and what would you change if you had full control over this? And then the prerequisite NPS score, just so I got something to measure.
So I think it's interesting that the question was around ROI, right? And so far, most of what we're talking about measuring is member happiness or member satisfaction. Which is not quite the same thing, right? what's important is that you're able to tie that member satisfaction or member participation to business value. So actually proving the ROI of community means you've identified what the business goal is originally, right? You said we're going to build a community because we want to increase awareness that will drive more customers, or we want to reduce support costs and support staff, or we want to drive more product feedback and apply the feedback to our product for product innovation, right? You've identified this specific area of your business that you intend community to be contributing to, and you can tie community back to that. So the next step after showing NPS or member satisfaction, or if you're actually solving the needs of customers, would be then to tie it back to that business goal and say, okay, we've seen that we've been able to create this experience for our community members, and as a result, it's had this specific impact on our business metrics that we defined up front is what we want to impact. Now, the challenge there is it's going to be hard when we're talking about building a community from scratch. We're talking about the very early days, and the reality is you're probably not going to see many results for the first 3 months, maybe even 6 months, sometimes longer, right? Because community takes a long time to really develop to the point where it truly is changing the experience that people have with your brand, with your product, and actually driving that business value. So, I think there has to be a certain standard of being realistic about how long it's going to take to see those results. But in order to really show that ROI, we can't just look at the community health, which is really important. We also need to look at how is that community health being tied back to the business operations or the business value that we've set out to achieve.
Bam. Oh, go ahead, Vanessa.
And I just have 2 quick comments, just because there's so much information here, and I'm trying to, just think about how to organize it for people who are just starting a community. And there's 3 types of metrics that should be in everyone's dashboard, either in the beginning or the end, while they grow it. It's growth metrics, engagement metrics, and business impact metrics. And I just wanted to clarify just for a second, because metrics and measurement is fairly new to community management as our practice. It's just really important to think about your measure, which are things that you want to see happen. So you always need to codify or identify your measure and then tie your numeric outcome. How do you know it's happening? So you might use along with the growth, engagement, and business metrics. So when you develop your dashboards or your reports, think about putting it in what do you want to see happen, and then either the qualitative, which is the non-numeric, like we got these types of outcomes or problem solved, or the numeric things you can measure as your metric. And don't get too many. You only want, under 5, because you'll spend your whole life measuring everything, and you become what you measure, so you have to pick prudently.
Yep, that's an amazing point. We have about a little bit less than 10 minutes. So I'm actually going to cut the last couple questions that I had, and I just want to finish on a high point here. So I'm curious to hear from each one of you, what is the advice that you would give to somebody who is building a community for a brand from scratch for the very first time? What would you tell them?
Ask the right questions. Especially as a consultant and as a freelancer, having come into a company, whether it was from the ground or whether it was like established company and now wants to build a community, if you don't understand the business goals, the customers, like what the purpose of the community is going to be, if you're not asking the right questions, and if you're not providing transparency to the higher ups, the executives, or even just a small business owner that you're working with, and answering their questions in the right way, you're not going to build the proper community, because there'll be holes that you won't be able to fill right away. So definitely ask the right questions, and then encourage transparency between you and the other parts of the company, whether it's developers, whether it's owners, whether it's accounting even. I mean, it just really depends. So that's what I would say.
I would say for me, it's find the influencers. I think once you have some scale or you have some folks, find some folks that can actually amplify your message, because it's very hard for one person to do everything. So find the people that are, that will basically amplify.
For me, it's serve your members, serve them well, serve them with such focus, and always do the right thing by them. Because if you keep them at the center of your universe, then your sponsors will be happy. Then your organization will see the benefits. But they need to be the center of the universe, because without them, you don't have community.
Or perhaps a business.
I think it can be tempting to have a laundry list of things that you want to do when you're starting from scratch because you have a blank slate. So I'll tell a piece of advice that I actually recently got from another great VC community manager, Jay Akunzo over at NextView Ventures. And he said to me his rule of thumb, his golden rule, is when something's working, even if it's just like a little glimmer of something, do more with that, not of that. So dig in deeper and make that thing better and better and better, rather than take that as a sign that you should start a new vertical immediately or add on. Really just dig in and go for quality over quantity, even though it's tempting to do everything in the kitchen sink.
Damn, everybody had such good ones. I think the important things are, before you even start building, make sure you understand your business goals and your members' motivations, and those two things have to be aligned before you even get started. Otherwise, you're set up to fail if you build a community that your business doesn't want or your members don't want. And then for actually building it, it's don't forget that this is a very human thing, right? It's great that we're starting to look at community as a more professional, disciplined, strategic thing. And like I said, if you don't think about that first, you're going to fail. But once you understand that strategic thing, just be a human, be real. Have your beliefs and your opinions. Take a stance on something. Do something that gets people really excited to participate, right? There's value in giving people answers to their questions, and there's value in solving a problem for people. But what people really come around is somebody who cares so damn much about this topic that they're willing to fight for it and disagree with people and piss off other people, right? If you piss off other people, that means the people who agree with you are going to feel a stronger sense of belonging as a part of this group. So be a human with real opinions and a real voice, and have passion in what you're doing, and people will want to be a part of that. They'll want to be surrounded by other people who have that energy, right? It's energy, right? The community is all about having this really good energy that's bringing people together. So don't forget to, don't make it so dry that you lose that special energy that really makes communities come together.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that's a wrap, everybody. We're just finishing up now. So it was great to hear everybody's perspectives, and hopefully everyone watching this walks away with a little bit more crystallized of an idea of how to build something from the ground up.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. It's just fantastic. It's actually a little awe-inspiring just to hear the passion that all of you guys are speaking with when it comes to starting these communities. Great information, and I know that everybody on this panel would love to get in contact with anybody else that has more questions, wants to dig in deeper with this, or some more specific questions. So make sure you hit them up. So thanks to the panelists, thanks to you guys, and we will be back in about 7 minutes, 420 seconds. Come on back, and we'll be in another panel. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. Bye, guys.